Welcome back to another how to use a champion in 10 minutes or less. Today's edition, Apocalypse. So let's hop into it and see how we use this mutant god. We're going to kick things off with his signature ability, Survival of the Fittest. When using another champion, Apocalypse will enter his rejuvenation chamber and will regen a portion of health at the start of the next fight. This stacks up to 2 times. It's not essential for playing Apocalypse, but it's a nice wee added benefit to the champion. Being a mutant god that Apocalypse is, he has genetic enhancement. So this is a persistent charge mechanic where Apocalypse will start the quest with 1 genetic code, has a maximum of 4 charges at max ramp. Now if you're facing Apocalypse, like Alliance Board defense, he will start with 2 genetic codes, but if you're facing him on the final boss node, he will start with 3 genetic codes at the start of that fight. These are important because at the start of the fight, for each genetic code Apocalypse has, he gains 1 indefinite passive prowess that increases his special damage by 40% for each indefinite prowess. Along with the prowess, Apocalypse becomes stun immune when striking at 3 genetic codes, so kiss your parry goodbye. At max ramp, or 4 charges, striking the block of the opponent with a light attack inflicts a stun for 0.8 seconds, giving you a nice entry, which is perfect for those pesky brute force nodes. This ability does have a 12-second cooldown, but has no effect on well-timed blocks. How do you get charges to get them up to max ramp? Well, by knocking out a non-robot opponent, you gain 1 charge for the next fight. Fighting mutants, you gain an extra 2 charges at the start of the fight, so knock them out and you'll be at max ramp. But keep in mind, if you are using a mutant against Apocalypse, he will start at max ramp, so be careful with that one. Now, there is a way to gain max ramp, or max charges, whatever you want to call it, for the very first fight of the quest, and that's by using the Mr. Sinister, Kang or Cable synergy, giving you fully sized, heavy hitting Apocalypse right out the gate. Apocalypse has total molecular control over his body, granting him the ability to gain adaptive immunity for bleed, incinerate and disorient debuffs. And once these immunities have been gained, they will now persist for the entirety of the quest. So this is perfect for bleed, biohazard, energy adoption fire nodes, and even the Red Hulk boss in Act 7.1. If the opponent evades Apocalypse, he gains a passive 10% chance to bypass future evades, and this cannot be affected by ability accuracy reduction and persists for the entirety of the quest as well. A major asset Apocalypse has in his arsenal, his opponents suffer minus 100% Purify ability accuracy reduction. So those pesky champions that shrug debuffs like Kingpin, Daredevil Hell's Kitchen, Korg,
my name is Korg,
or even Mole Man, they can no longer purify your debuffs, which is awesome for a champion that is a debuff dealing machine. A lot of Apocalypse's damage comes via the debuffs he inflicts, so that minus 100% purify ability accuracy is pretty big for him. And the way he inflicts debuffs is via his heavy attacks and his specials, so not having your parry stuns being purified is pretty damn useful. Apocalypse has a double hit heavy with both strikes inflicting a bleed debuff, dealing direct damage over 7 seconds. The heavy attack also refreshes all personal weakness, poison, concussion and degeneration debuffs active on the opponent that are triggered via the special attacks. And both the special attack 1 and the special attack 2 place a corresponding debuff on the opponent depending on if a light attack or a medium attack was the last hit prior to the special attack being thrown. On light attacks, utility debuffs are placed with the SP1 placing a non-stacking weakness, reducing attack by 25%, whereas the SP2 placing non-stacking concussion, reducing ability accuracy by 35%. On medium attacks, damage over time debuffs are placed, with the SP1 placing a non-stacking poison, dealing direct damage, also reduces healing by 30%. The SP2, this inflicts a non-stacking degeneration debuff doing direct damage, and all 4 debuffs last 25 seconds. So if the opponent is suffering from a damaging debuff, like that from the heavy attacks or even suicide masteries, then the special attack debuffs trigger on activation of the special attack and they last 30% longer. Now via the SP3, all personal weakness, poison, concussion and degeneration debuffs active on the opponent are refreshed for 100% of their potency and are now paused indefinitely. If none of these debuffs were active on activation of the SP3, then 2 debuffs are placed at random, but they lack the potency or the paused duration. Apocalypse has the ability to enhance his mutant followers via a pre-fight ability when at 4 genetic codes. At the start of the fight, Apocalypse can spend 4 of his genetic codes to place a cross-fight ability for the next mutant, bar himself, that enters the fight. This ability will persist throughout the rest of the quest, and it's got some nice abilities. Horsemen will gain 100% bleed resistance, so if you're running willpower and doing like a bleed or biohazard lane, then you can use those bleed debuffs to get some nice free healing. Next up, an indefinite prowess is gained. This is a passive prowess and it increases special damage by 50%. Let's be honest, who doesn't like a wee bit extra oomph on their special attacks? The next ability is Horseman can go unblockable when purifying a debuff. So if you're using Sunspot for example, and you're charging a heavy to purify the incinerates off of the defender, you're going to be unblockable when you throw that heavy attack, which is a nice wee added benefit as well. The last ability you gain as a Horseman is a passive unstoppable once per fight if you're struck. This definitely comes in handy if you miss an evade, parry, whatever. Help you reset and save the fight. Now if you are lucky enough to have 2 Apocalypse in your roster, you can make 2 separate mutants Horsemen of Apocalypse in a quest, but sadly we can't make Apocalypse a Horseman of the other Apocalypse, although that would be awesome. It's synergy time now. So the first synergy on the list is coincidentally called the first one. So this is where Apocalypse gains plus 15% attack for each mutant on the team bar himself. So that's a nice 60% increase in attack if you do go full on mutant. The second synergy we've touched on previously. This is the one that gives Apocalypse 4 genetic codes in the first fight of the quest. It's called Your Fate Is Mine, with Mr. Sinister, Kang and Cable. Now as for the other champions here, it's got some nice benefits. So on Kang, you gain an indefinite fury buff up to a maximum of 20, increasing his damage by 20% each. Sadly, I don't own a Kang, so I can't really test this. So I got my friend to record this, who has luckily got a Kang. And Mr. Sinister, he has a degen debuff potency increase by 50%. And Cable's got something similar with his incinerates, and they gain 150% potency increase. Cable had a second ability where his heavies now stack degens. You can get some pretty nice numbers and some spicy damage off this. Next set of synergies now solely benefit the other champions instead of Apocalypse. First up, we've got Impending Storm, which is a synergy with OG Storm, where each hit of our heavy on a shocked opponent has a 60% chance to inflict an additional shock. Now if Storm is a Horseman, then shocks are 50% longer and refresh on heavy attacks. Some pretty big numbers of shocks if you keep spamming that heavy when they are shocked. Some pretty nice damage. Next up, we've got Guardian of the Pyramid with Storm Pyramid X. And if you charge her dormant prowess, there's a 70% chance to trigger a passive prowess for each prowess already active. So each prowess increases special damage by 15% for 6 seconds, and if she's a Horseman, she gains plus 30% critical rating and plus 20% prowess potency. Bringer of Death 1 with Psylocke grants her 30% chance to gain side charges off of each hit, increasing critical rating by 5% for each one. If she's a Horseman, she gains plus 50% attack and plus 50% critical rating when striking an opponent with 0 power. Bringer of Death 2 with Gambit grants him a 70% chance to gain additional kinetic charge when one is gained with a cooldown of 0.8 seconds. If he is a horseman, each kinetic charge grants him plus 10% block proficiency, which can definitely come in handy in a variety of situations. Bringer of Death 3 with Wolverine grants a chance for bleeds to become critical, and if he is a horseman, he gains plus 30% critical rating and plus 40% critical damage rating, so more chance to bleed and more damage for a champion who isn't known for his damage. The last synergy is Bringer of Death 4 with Archangel, where each hit on a stunned opponent has a 10% chance to pause neurotoxins for 3 seconds. If he is a horseman, the stun duration of neurotoxins is increased by 30%, and that's always handy as well. This has been how to use a champion in 10 minutes or less, and if you did find this guide on Apocalypse useful, please drop us a wee like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for future content, and I'll catch you in the next one. All the best.